Dan Francis Owen, welcome to In Style Of. Currently working on a London West End show at the moment, Murder Ballad. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to give you an insight into working in theatre. So let's go and check it out. So here we are, we're on the stage, we're at the Leicester Square Arts Theatre for Murder Ballad. With this show, the band is, sometimes we're visible, sometimes we're sort of visible, and sometimes we're on stage like vibing out with the cast and actually part of the show itself. I can show you here, we're actually playing behind these kind of transparent-ish sliders which do come up and down, which do make us visible at some parts of the show. And for that reason we're actually in costume. So we sort of look a little bit like a trendy All Saints type of vibe. But anyway, let me show you the gear that I'm using. So first thing that I wanted to mention to you guys was about the music. I'm sure like a lot of you guys are thinking, okay, cool, I'm really into the theatre thing. How far in advance do you get the music? For this show, I think I've got it maybe a month in advance or something like that, and then maybe 3 weeks before rehearsal started got the cast recording, the actual official recording of the album, and then from there my whole preparation process was sitting down with the score and with the recording as well, and figuring out what sounds I thought was going to be best. And then obviously that led me to the P-bass. This show is mainly in the rock and like sort of on the punk side of things as well. So after rehearsals I sort of slimlined all the gear that I brought to rehearsals and arrived at playing P-bass with a pick mainly. So there's like a lot of rock stuff, there's more punky stuff, and there's also some ballad type of things as well. Just a note about that, when you do go to rehearsals, it's really good to be prepared with a lot of different options. So like for rehearsals for this show, like obviously I'd listened to the recordings and figured out what I thought was going to be best, but obviously when you turn up to rehearsals and things start changing, you never know what the MD's going to want, whether he's got a different interpretation or different ideas. So for rehearsals I turned up with the P-bass, turned up with my jazz bass, and also I went with my Yamaha TRB, all 5 strings. Just because with those 3 basses, obviously you've got the classic sound of the P and the J, and with the Yamaha thing it's like a really versatile bass, really versatile 24 fret bass. It's like a really it's got a great preamp on it, it's got a lot of bottom end, it's a great all-rounder. So I turned up with those 3 basses, just so that I had everything covered, and they were all in 5 strings as well, and I think that's generally quite a good way to go, to make sure that you have that bottom register, because I think sometimes it's better to have it and not use it than need it and not have it, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, cool, and right, I've not scripted this at all, so I'm just totally winging it. So basically, what am I running my P-bass into? I'm going to show you now, if I can get it out, that is. So I'm running it into a radial tone bone. As you can see, I'm just running everything at midnight, nothing fancy. This is a great preamp because, well, it's a great piece of kit because obviously you've got a tuner in, you got an effects loop, and also you've got 2 inputs and a toggle to switch in between. I'm going into input 2 here so I can have control of the preamp. Like I say, I'm running it all at midnight because really the tone of the P-bass is cutting it for the show, so I'm not really having to do anything. But like I said, with the 5-string basses, it's better to have the ability and the flexibility to change your sound. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So if the front of house perhaps say, oh, can you dial in a little bit of bottom end, it's not quite cutting it out front, then you can do it with this. Okay, cool. Now let's go on to this thing. Now this thing is called an Avion, and it's like a personal mixer. As you can see, the channel strips, drums, keys, bass guitar, band reverb, Vox, that's like the cast Vox. And then also we've got click for a couple of tunes here, and it's not actually marked on there, but this channel is actually a musical director talkback. So this is what I go to alter my mix. This is really great because, like, if I'm in the middle of a show, I've got 8 bars or something, I can just be like, okay, cool, the guitar's not loud enough there, I can tweak it, I can pan it, I've got volume, and I've got control, I've got a master control, and also control over the bass and treble, over everything. And this is running, and I'm running it into my in-ears, into a wireless pack. So this goes onto the back of your trousers on the gig, and then you're on in-ears. Now the advantage of using in-ears on this gig, well, for one, it's really tidy, which is amazing. There's no cables like kicking about, or you're not standing all over anything. But the whole idea of using in-ears on this gig in particular is to keep the stage volume as quiet as possible. Like, as you can see up here, this is a what do you call it? We've actually got our drummer Billy filming. Hi Billy, say hi Billy.
Hello everyone.
We've got actual perspex here to contain the drums, the drum sound, so there's not much bleed coming out of on stage and going out mixing with the front of house. So yeah, with the in-ears, we have the isolation, and we can also, like we're saying, it's our own personal mix, so we can dial in what we want when we want. So that's the advantage of that. Up here, it's a little bit of a funny position to have this in, but this is the MD monitor. So basically, what happened with this show, because I've not mentioned that, was actually where the drums are, and if you see behind you where the guitar and keyboards are, they're actually on 2 moving trucks. So what happens at some points in the show, they move in and out. So basically, during production week, we were trying to come up with a way of fixing the music stand onto the drum truck and also the MD monitor, so that obviously to minimise, to maximise floor space and efficiency with the drum truck. So obviously this is what we arrived at. It was up here. Normally you'd probably have it on the top of your music stand. Is there anything else? And right on cue, everybody, here is our musical director.
Oh.
Hi.
So guys, we're here with our MD, Sean Green, the amazing Sean Green. Sean, would you mind telling everybody a little bit about you, and what you've done in the past leading up to this show?
Yeah, sure. So I did a music degree originally back in the day. I'm old. And then I did postgrad in musical direction at Mount View, which was cool. And then after that year, I just started freelancing, doing fringe shows, MDing, playing keys on shows, depping, and finally kind of getting into the assistant role and then MD role as well.
Great. So as a musical director, what was your overall vision for the music of this show?
Well, the vision changed.
Right.
Originally, it was to expand on the sound world that we've been given. I was only going to be able to have 4 musicians.
What do you mean by sound world?
Well, originally the show was conceived as in a bar. So
Okay.
the 4 musicians, bass, drums,
Yeah.
guitar, keys, with keys playing guitar. I don't play guitar, so I had to then change that part to just keys based, and then because it was set in a bar, the sound was very much like house band led.
Okay, cool, cool.
And our director wanted to explore the idea of maybe making it a bit more filmic or soundtrack.
Right,
and
okay.
expand the sound in that way.
Great.
Which we explored.
Great.
And then the director didn't like, so we took it out. And it's now back to being a 4-piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, not exactly the way it was before, but slightly different.
Right, okay. So when you sort of knew the lineup and obviously certain different ideas about the music and how you had it in your head, how did that decipher the types of musicians? Did that have an influence on the musicians that you wanted to get involved?
Well, yes and no. Maybe not the sound, but the
Okay.
visual of the show is quite
Okay.
important. And from the get-go, the director was like, I want the band to be on display.
Cool.
I want the musicians to be able to interact with the actors and walk
Cool.
on stage, which kind of meant that I had to search for musicians, A, who were willing to do that,
Yeah.
who are personable,
Yeah.
who look good,
Yeah.
and can also, you know, play and be
Yeah.
comfortable
Yeah.
on a stage
So
in
you've,
front of an
so you've
audience.
already got all those skills there that
Yes.
where they can read, they can perform on
Yes.
stage,
Yeah.
you know, and be comfortable with it.
Yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
it's a different thing playing in a pit band to actually playing
Yeah.
on stage amongst actors and with an audience and lights and all that
Yeah.
on you, and kind of
Totally.
you know, not letting it phase you.
Yeah. How important do you think it is a musician's behaviour out of the pit or off stage?
Really important. I mean, you're your brand, aren't you? You know,
course, yeah,
if
yeah,
you act like a dick or, you know, like a tool or whatever.
We'll bleep that bit out.
Sorry, can I swear? You know, if you don't act in a way that's pleasing to other people, you don't get hired.
Sure. Of course.
You know, you
yeah.
can be the best player in the world, but if no one wants to work with you, no one's going to hire you.
Of course. You heard it here. You heard it here, folks. Okay, so from specifically a bass player's point of view,
Okay.
what type of thing are you looking for in a bass player?
Sexiness. No, just playing. I think.
In what context?
No, I think a bass player has to lock in really well with the drummer.
Yeah.
That's, you know, provides a really nice, solid,
Of course.
locked in rhythm section. For me, with this show especially, because it wasn't going to be, this is your music, you play this every night. There's an element of play, there's an interplay and improvisation.
Mhm.
So it had to be somebody who kind of can lock in and can respond and react
Yeah.
and is creative. That's kind
Sure.
of what I was looking for with this show, with the musicians that I
Brilliant.
got.
So, obviously, what I'm trying to get out of you is
Yes.
for you to tell me that, and to tell everybody watching this video that, that different people are suited to different gigs.
Oh,
basically.
totally. Yeah. Like I mean, if I was doing My Fair Lady,
Mm.
I wouldn't look for a bass player who can lock in with the
Yeah.
drums and improvise. I'd be looking for somebody.
You wouldn't look for somebody from a Metallica tribute band.
No, of course
basically.
not. Of course, yeah. You know,
Okay.
every job has its
Yeah.
own individual, kind of, you know, qualities. In a sense,
Yes.
in MDing, I wouldn't be suitable for other MDing jobs as I am for this.
Of course,
you know,
yeah.
It swings and roundabouts. Everyone
Of
is
course.
different, brings
Brilliant.
different skills to the table.
Sean, thanks so much. Sean Green, everybody.
Thank you.
So, guys, I'm here with Sam Clarkson. Sam, would you be able to tell the guys a little bit about yourself and your job role here in the theatre?
So I've been touring for about 15 years. I haven't done sound for the whole 15 years. I've only done sound for about 5 years.
Cool.
And most of that time I've been production engineering, so just building
Right.
systems for other people.
Okay.
But on this project that we're working to together, I was lucky enough to be sound designer
Cool.
and operator.
Great, brilliant. And have you always worked with musicians, even when you've been building rigs?
Yeah, a lot of jobs, and I guess
Yeah.
when you're building the system, more often than not the designer will ask you to supervise the band when you're doing a band call.
Right, okay,
So you
cool.
get pretty up close and personal with the band.
Right, okay, so you build up, because you are sort of quite living, you live in each other's pockets quite a lot, don't you? So that relationship is quite, building up a rapport and a relationship is quite important, would you say?
Well, if you're on tour with a group of people, yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, not just the sound team and the band, with everybody, as I'm sure you know.
Sure, yeah.
But the relationship, I think, is what you mean between the sound group and the band is particularly important
Yeah.
because you have to get on and you have to understand each other because in my opinion, the sound team or the sound operator in particular is an extension of the band. He's another member of the band.
So be very nice to your sound guys.
To me.
Lots of beer for Sam later.
Yeah, I think so, because I guess I learn what you guys do, and
because Sam said something interesting to me maybe about 30 minutes ago. He said, "Oh, I really like something that you're doing in the show, which never stood out before."
I never heard before.
And so when things like that happen,
but I can't remember where it was.
So when things like that happen, what do you do your end to bring it out in the mix?
So I hate to admit it, but I think I accidentally stumbled across it in the last show because I maybe had you louder in the mix than I'd had you before.
Okay.
And I suddenly heard something
that
you were playing that I hadn't heard before, and you know, I'm sure you've been playing it
every
night.
Yeah.
It was a great accident, and you know, stuff like that only happens, I guess, if you have consistency with the operator.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And so now I'm going to lean on that all the time, and I can't remember now where it sits in the show, but I know when I get to it in the show tonight, it'll just come. It's like, you know, as all operators will know, it's muscle memory. Yeah. As soon as that number kicks in, for some reason my hand will automatically go to you now, and I'll give it that push that I found yesterday.
Because you've done this show so many times.
Yeah, it's just like as a player, I guess you've done it so many times that something just happens. And if somebody asks you to jump into the middle of a number, you'll struggle. But if you play it from the beginning, it'll just come back to you. Yeah, totally agree. So I think it's the same for mixing.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's talk about actual musicians and bass players in particular. So out of all like the musicians and the bass players who you've worked with, what have like been the most, the best or the most admirable attributes that they've had? Apart from buying lots of beer, you know.
Consistency is the most important thing for any operator. Any designer, anybody involved in sound, we need the players to be consistent. If a dep comes on, it's bad news for an operator because there's
not that there are not people who can come and dep.
Not because they're not any good, absolutely not. It's just you get used to, like, if a dep singer, a dep performer comes on, you just get used to the sound and the feel of I hate to say the A group, but the group you're used to, the performers, and the
people
the
you've
band you're used
rehearsed.
to. Absolutely, you get used to that sound, and any change, you know, if you hear the slightest change in a song, you think something's wrong, and you know, there's a kind of heart-going moment. You're like, shit, what have I done wrong? Something's happened. And if a dep comes on, that could cause that panic.
Yeah, sure. So
because I don't know if you do any volume changes on your bass or tone changes, they might do like half a turn less, or they might not do that change at all, or their bass that they're using might be slightly different. So it just makes the feel of the show very different.
So that sort of goes back to you talking about being an extension of the band, doesn't it? And almost being a musician yourself, because you do have to have a musical ear, don't you?
I like to think I do.
Yeah.
I like to think I do. I think it helps. Brilliant. I play quite a few instruments, and I certainly think having a slight musical ability helps. Yeah. Having a bit of rhythm helps, because I do think this is an instrument to a certain extent.
Great stuff. And what about, especially with regard to bass players, how important? What would you expect from a bass player turning up to rehearsal or turning up to production week, for example?
Jesus, what would I expect? I think I'd expect the same thing from any musician. Fuck, that's such a hard question. I don't know how to answer that.
What gear would you, for example, what gear would you expect them to turn up with?
It's tricky, Dan, only because very rarely am I, as an operator and production engineer, involved in the early stages of rehearsals. Okay. By the time I meet a band, they've already been through weeks of rehearsals, and you know, they know each other. I don't know, I expect them to know the songs, I expect them to have the instrument, I expect them to know their instrument. Yeah. The worst, I guess, for me is when musicians are reluctant to take responsibility for their instruments. Right. I hate it when people turn up and expect you as a sound department to deal with their stuff for them. Okay. So, as long as you're responsible for your stuff and you know your trade, then we'll get on fine.
Brilliant. Heard it there, folks. Sam Clarkson.
was going to swear then, but you told me not to.
Thanks very much, mate.
Pleasure.
Thanks. So guys, I'm here with the amazing, the beautiful Kerry Ellis. Say hi, Kerry.
Hi. Hello, hello.
Kerry, would you mind telling everybody who's watching this a little bit about yourself and what you've done in your career so far, in a nutshell, obviously.
In a nutshell.
Leading up to like where we are now.
Okay, so I come from theatre predominantly. I've done a ton of West End shows. Oliver, Les Mis, We Will Rock You,
Cool.
Murder Ballad, Wicked.
Cool.
And alongside that, I've had like a music career. And I've worked for about 15 years alongside Dr. Brian May from Queen.
Great.
We've done concerts and albums, and I do orchestral stuff.
Great.
A bit of everything.
Cool, great. So there's a lot of different working environments and a lot of different stylistic environments as well. So
Yeah,
let's focusing on the musical theatre thing for a minute. Obviously, like for performers, actors and singers and musicians, obviously consistency is a big part of what we do, isn't it? Because 98% of the time we've got to turn up and do 98% of the same job at 6 nights a week, so that people who come on a Monday and who come on a Friday can get together and have a coffee and say,
I saw the same show.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So when it comes to musicians, because obviously you're out there in the spotlight in front of everyone, everybody's watching
No
you.
pressure, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how important is it for you to feel supported by the musicians with this sense of consistency?
Oh, so important. I mean, it's on, and I've kind of experienced all levels of this, and it's a real interesting topic because obviously in long running shows, people dep things out, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
And it's the same with actors in a way, because we all have understudies, but it's slightly different because it's, you could have, like, for instance, somebody on drums on a Monday and a different person on a Tuesday and a different person on a Wednesday.
Sure.
And I think for a company or for on stage, you do notice that because people feel things differently. But it's part of the job, it's part of live theatre, and I know people can get sensitive about it, but I kind of like to embrace it because it's just, that's life, and it's how different people play, it's how different people experience things, and that's the beauty of what we do. It's live, it's going to be slightly different, and people will see a different show on a Monday to a Saturday, but only because we're only human beings and we will feel things slightly differently, but then that's the beauty of it being live, and that's the magic of it.
Yeah, of course. So talking about the other gigs that you do, obviously it's a slightly different scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
And obviously there is a little bit more creative room, there's a slightly bigger margin for creative freedom, isn't there, on gigs? So what do you look for in musical theatre musicians, and what do you look for in giggy musicians?
I think it's kind of all the same thing. It's all about, if people play from the heart and play with passion, I don't think it matters if you're playing in theatre or you're playing it in a gig. I just think it's about the material at the time, and you just want people to commit and to work as a team as well. I know in theatre we have MDs and we have people waving a stick, to try and keep us all together, and on a gig it's slightly different. You have to listen and feel each other and work together, but it's all about everybody listening to each other, whether you've got someone on a stick or not. It's about you working as a team, and that's so important. And I think people forget that in big shows because you've got someone that keeping you all the time. But if you don't listen to each other,
in my experience, I feel like some musicians are a little bit adverse to shows because they get this interpretation that you turn up and just read the dots and play the dots in a certain way every night. And that is true to an extent, but like you're saying, you're not just hiring somebody to read the dots on the page, because if you're doing that, you could just get a robot to come and do it. Whereas, like, for example, on this show, you know, there's some little spaces in the music where, for me,
Yeah.
I know even in the music it's not written to play a fill or a slide or something, but my musical ear and my musical instincts tell me, like, I know what that needs there.
Yeah, yeah.
And
especially on something like this
yeah.
that's so exposing. It's an intimate
Yeah.
band, it's an intimate cast on stage, and we have to all work together and listen to
Sure.
each other, because otherwise, you know, things will really stand out. But then it's the same on a big show. I think
Yeah.
people underestimate how much difference it makes, when it could be, you know, the second piano, it could be like
Yeah.
percussion, it could be, you know, it could be just one person,
Yeah.
and you go, oh, that's a bit different.
A little bit different. So for example, like in this show, on Murder Ballad, there is quite a large margin for creative freedom in my part, and I've been kind of given rein on that by
Yeah.
Sean, the musical director, which is brilliant, because he trusts me.
Yeah.
So bearing that in mind, I know that as the shows have gone on, I've got more and more comfortable with my part, and I've started to put little additions into the score.
Yeah.
And as
We hear them.
Just checking. So as that's gone on, and I've like put these little bits and bobs in, some of them are larger than others. So I've started to, once I've found something that I'm happy with, I sort of stick with it.
Yeah.
And I'm quite conscious of you guys on stage, because I'm thinking, okay, because obviously when the show's coming together, it's all just bashing it together.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need a production meeting and press night, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But then once you get into the routine and the whole machine of it,
Yeah.
that's when it becomes a well-oiled machine, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm conscious, if I play a certain bass fill for 3 weeks in a row and then I don't play it,
Yeah.
somebody could be taking that as a cue.
Somebody will notice.
Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they could be. They could be, but I think that's why we have people to look after all that. That's why we
Yeah.
have Sean, just to keep an eye on all that if it is a cue or something. But
Yeah.
it's the same for us. We have to keep things fresh, and the same
Sure.
for you, I'm sure. You know, you've got to keep it alive and keep it
Yeah.
exciting for you and make it fun for you to play the show.
Yeah, definitely.
But it makes a difference. I worked recently with a young orchestra called the Novello Orchestra.
Okay.
Quite a small, about 25 piece, I think. We did a show in Cardiff and Palladium.
Cool.
And they're all young musicians, and with so much passion. And you know, I've been fortunate to play with the London Philharmonic, the Royal Philharmonic, the Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. You know, all these fantastic
No big deal. No big deal.
people that are wonderful.
Yeah.
But to play, you know, with an orchestra with such passion was just
Yeah.
mind blowing. You know, and
Yeah.
it makes a difference. It really does.
The young energy and
Just the
wanting to play.
commitment, the passion, you know. And I mean, Brian's the same. I mean, and Brian is slightly older,
Yeah.
but he, you know, he plays with such passion, and that's what makes him special. I think
Yeah.
if you love doing it, then, I mean, I'm no young spring chicken either, and I just think I love it, and I feel fortunate to do what I do, and every time there's a different challenge, a different show,
Sure.
I'm excited about it, because I think
Yeah.
this is great. So I think that's massively important.
Okay, so I think I've asked everybody this. So what are you looking for, and what do you rely on on a bass player? In a bass player. Sorry.
I think you want to feel confident in them. You want to feel supported, and it's almost like you almost don't want to. You don't want anything to kind of jolt you. So like at the moment, like the show happens and
Yeah.
everything feels great, and it has a real energy to it. I
Yeah.
guess if something stood out,
Yeah.
that would freak you out, because you'd be like,
Sure.
oh, what is that?
Yeah.
But I think it's about just feeling supported.
And almost the fact that if you were being noticed, it's almost a bad thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like you say, if something just sticks out for the wrong
Yeah,
reason,
yeah.
and it doesn't fit with the piece. I think with theatre you have to be careful of the story. You know, at the end of the day,
Of
we're all
course,
telling
yeah.
a story. So if something
Yeah.
is different on a gig, because we all show off and we all doing cool things, and you know, but in a show you're telling a story. So if
Absolutely.
something distracts people from the story, and same with us. If I was to
Yeah.
like riff all over the place, people would be like, what did she just say? You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
irrelevant, so it has to
Yeah,
be
totally.
relevant. But if it's relevant, you know, it's like we did the Mouth Tattoo song is suddenly it's a big song and everybody can kind of relax a bit and rock out a bit, and it's a perfect time for it because that's the right time in the show for that song. But if we did it in like Coffee's On or something, which is a lot more intimate, it would be wrong, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's choosing the right time, I think.
Amazing. So you heard it here, guys. Choose your time wisely,
Choose
alright?
your time. But if you're doing a gig, rock out.
Kerry Ellis, everybody.
Yay.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope that this insight into working in musical theatre has been helpful for you all. Any questions, any comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. Take it easy. See you next time.